Hi, everybody. Welcome to the inaugural uh, Ohio Statewide Family Engagement Leadership Summit. We are glad that you could join us on this day of professional learning meant to take family, school, community partnership to the next level. My name is Tom Capretta, and I'll be this session's moderator, so I can help you out with anything that you need that way today. And we are in session 1, which is supporting all families in virtual learning environments, featuring my colleague here, Sherri Wilson. So if you have any questions, concerns, or technical issues, feel free to message me privately in the chat. To ensure that we get the most out of today, we're asking that everyone keeps their webcams and microphones off. So you should all be set that way, but if something happens, please be aware of that. And we're using the chat feature to ask questions, and I'll try to pass them along at an appropriate time. So remember, lead the launch on Twitter as a hashtag, and I'm going to turn it over to my distinguished colleague from the National Association for Family, School, and Community Engagement, Sherri Wilson. Thanks, Sherri.
Thank you, Tom. It's great to be here. I'm super excited to share with you what I know about supporting all families during virtual learning. I am Sherri Wilson. I'm the Director of Engagement and State Partnerships at the National Association for Family, School, and Community Engagement, or as we lovingly call it, NAFSCE. So let's get started. Today we're going to focus on 3 areas really, and I want this to be interactive because I know that you guys have done a lot of work already, and I'm eager to learn from you as well. So as we go, feel free to type your questions into the chat box, and Tom, if you need to stop me at any point to respond to one of those, I'm happy to do it. We're also going to stop at a couple of points midway through and really talk about what we've covered so far. So today we're going to focus on 3 areas to support families during virtual learning. First, we're going to think about how to support families as they set up home learning environments. Then we're going to identify strategies to keep learning motivating and interesting. And then we're going to share ideas to encourage and support families. This really is uncharted territory for all of us, students, teachers, families, parents, caregivers. So when we talk about supporting families with virtual learning, we really need to recognize that this is an evolving area. There's not one right answer that's going to work for every family. And our families have many differences. The number of children they have or their children's ages, schedules. Some families may be working from home. Some may still work outside the home. Some may be unemployed right now. They might have lost their jobs because of the pandemic. We also know that families have different levels of capacity right now. But we know from the research that all families want their children to be successful. They also are feeling a lot of anxiety and pressure right now to balance life schedules and at-home learning, and that's not unlike many of us. As different as families all are, this is one thing I think we all have in common. So we have to encourage families and remind them they have a lot to offer. Everyone is more successful when they believe they can be. So you can remind families that they are their children's first teacher, and the home was their child's first classroom. And professionally, we've been faced with many challenges. We've had limited interactions and face-to-face time, having many families to manage with online learning, and feeling that our students are going to fall behind. Families experienced a lot of challenges as well, but we should think about how we can reframe that challenge so that it becomes more of an opportunity. Actually, there's a lot of opportunities for all of us. We can manage the time we use on social media, using that as a tool for social interaction. We should capitalize on the bonds that families have with their children. We know right now families are spending a lot more time with their children than they ever have in the past. So this is a great opportunity for us to capitalize on that and help them. We can also use this in our favor by using technology as a bridge to reach out to them, to strengthen the capacity of families for continuous learning at home. We can utilize virtual and online resources as teaching tools that have not been fully explored in school in the past. Things like maybe taking kids on a virtual field trip. There are a lot of online resources that are out there just waiting to be explored. And we also have the ability to use everyday experiences as a means for children to learn and grow. We know that children are natural learners, and so using those everyday experiences like cooking or gardening or working on their cars or any other number of things families do at home can be a part of that home learning environment. So let's take a moment, and I'm going to ask everybody to turn on their cameras and microphones if you want, and we will talk about what have you done so far to really connect with families and to reach out to them during this time of social distancing. Anybody like to share what you've been doing? Yeah, Lisa Hunt, I see your hand up. Thank you.
Good morning, Sherri Wilson and everyone else. It's nice to be able to just listen, but also thanks for asking us to participate too. So in our district, we have a superintendent whose heart pushed her to ask for us to reach out individually to each and every family by phone. And because it was summer, it was sort of, how do we figure out how to do this? And so we had a phone bank initiative. And when I tell you, just hearing people's stories and really just being someplace that they could sort of vent and share and be listened to was so powerful that I think we all wanted more of it. And so part 2 of that was we did virtual family cafes. And so it was really, really a wonderful opportunity to listen and learn. And I keep saying it because I think we have to keep that going. That's one of those things. Let's hold on to that. Because it was really powerful in the way that we framed it. We did the World Cafe, but we asked people to look reflectively on what happened good during the first initial March shutdown, and really just tried to have people highlight some of those gems and the silver threads. And then we framed it as blooms. So what would not have happened had we not had that cataclysmic event happen. And so it was a really great opportunity for people to shout out some of those great things. But then we also talked about the thorns. And so we looked at some of those challenging spaces or places or things that we also know we're going to be facing us now as we go back into distance learning, and framed it as, and where are those buds? So where are those places that we can potentially work together on those challenges or support each other? So that was just really powerful. I'm now trying to think of what iteration of that is next, because I do think we have to keep it going, while also respecting that many of our educators were in the room, and it became a strategy for them. And so not to, we love to do a lot, but we know that right now less is more. And it's also, I think, really respectful for all of us as human beings still in a pandemic. So that was really powerful. And I just wanted to share that. Thank you for letting me.
Oh, no, I'm glad that you did. That is really powerful. And I love the idea of doing the parent cafes. Yesterday, at NASP, we actually had a webinar with the parent camp people. I don't know if any of you are familiar with parent camp. It's a very similar model, but the whole point of it is making that connection and listening and hearing what families are experiencing, so that as you work with them, you understand what they're going through and can really kind of tailor the things you send to them to what their needs are. Thank you, Lisa. Anybody else want to share with us what you've done? Yes, Jill Chambers.
Hi, so last year was our first year of doing parent engagement, and one of the things we started was a tea and talk together. And the concept was we would come with a topic that we would share information, but then it was encouraged the parents came with their own input, their own ideas, their own success stories. And we were able to continue that into Zoom. And so that's something that we've kind of continued because we're still doing remote and doing the Zoom where parents can connect with one another. So it's not just us giving information, but what's working for you at home that we hadn't thought of, or maybe another parent hadn't thought of. And then we also incorporated, you made me think of it with the virtual field trips. We did a virtual resource center. So the parents could go, you know, the fun little classroom where they can click on a window and it takes them to virtual field trips, or they can click on some food and it gave activities for cooking together as a family, or click on the door and outside activities. And so these are things that we did because we had to, and I think we will continue doing even when we get back together in person.
Wow, Jill, that is fantastic. I think Zoom is, so, you know, like anything else, there are pluses and minuses, pros and cons, but Zoom is a great opportunity to still connect with people and see their faces. And one of the things you said that I loved the most is that parents were sharing with each other their own success stories, because we can suggest things for them to do all day long, but other people who are experiencing similar things, sharing their own success stories is even more powerful. It's a great way to really honor and respect that families are doing the best they can with what they've got, and give them an opportunity to share strategies that will help other families be successful. That's beautiful. Who else would like to share with us? I see in the chat box that Knox Pam says their school hosted a listening session, Relearn, with parent and caregivers this summer to learn how the schools could support remote sessions. That's awesome too. The more we listen to families and take their concerns into account, the stronger our programs are going to be. All right, if there's nobody else, you can turn off your cameras and your microphones, and we will go back to the PowerPoint. So as we think about how to help families set up those home learning environments, we really need to reflect back on how we set up our own home work environments, because it's very similar. And using our own experiences is really a great way to think about what we want families to do. That being said, it's important to remember that everyone's space is unique. Families need to understand that flexibility is the key, and there's no perfect setting. So that way they won't feel like they're not doing it right. We really want them to feel empowered. So they need to understand that, you know, sometimes they're doing the best they can, and that's awesome. They can also start by asking their kids where they would like to work and what they would like to do in that workspace. When families understand that it's easier to motivate kids if they have some buy-in, they're more likely to ask for and work with those ideas. And that's going to bake in the success, right? Kids are going to be more likely to use that workspace if they feel that ownership over it. Another way they can start is maybe doing a home tour. So encourage families to walk together through their home, looking for areas that could be used or repurposed as learning spaces. Encourage them to be flexible, because it's not always the first attempt that's successful, and they may have to move some furniture around to get kids to a place where they feel comfortable in their new classroom. Also, encourage them to keep it simple, because fewer supplies makes it less likely that kids are going to get distracted. So we want to make sure that their setting has just what they need to be successful. And families might need to share resources as well as space, particularly when it comes to technology. So they need to create their own family norms. That means thinking about things like noise levels and sharing supplies and resources and technology. When they create their own norms or rules, it becomes easier to navigate. So a really useful strategy to help them with that is to create home learning schedules. There's so many templates out there on the web that they could use and You should find them and share them with families. Give them a couple of examples that they may be able to work from. They should also have rules, because nothing is more frustrating than when you're trying to work, or if kids are trying to participate in online learning and somebody in the background is singing loudly or yelling or talking even. That can often be avoided if they set up rules and schedules early on. And one more really important thing to think about is encouraging families to seek outdoor learning spaces when possible. Fresh air and sunshine while using social distancing is really healthy for all of us. Remind families that children move about more freely, and that's necessary no matter where they're learning. Often parents or caregivers think that in their minds, they think kids have to be sitting at a desk to be learning. Like if they're not sitting at a desk or a table, they're not really doing it right. That's not really true. Sometimes the outdoors can be a natural classroom with a lot to see and do. And families need examples of outdoor learning activities. So STEAM activities, science, technology, engineering, arts, those are activities that are really good for outside. And you may know some of those already. So setting up home learning environments, critical. Also, we have to support each other as we support families. It's really important that we think about how families are isolated, just like we've been isolated, right? And we are social creatures. That's human nature. So we have to have families, ways to connect with families as well as each other. One great way to do that is social media. It's really, Zoom is, for all its flaws, it is a fantastic tool to connect with each other. So I want to take another minute and talk about some of the strategies that you guys have used to connect with families during this time. What are some of the resources or tools that you've used? Has anyone used anything other than Zoom? Yeah, Ashley.
So I am in a unique kind of situation. I'm here in Columbus, and I actually partner with a lot of the schools within Columbus City District, offering alcohol and drug prevention and social emotional learning support. So we've kind of done things a little bit, you know, in more of a supportive realm.
Mm-hmm.
But in how we've engaged with our parents and our families in our program, we're at kind of a disadvantage, because a lot of the things that are really cool to use with families, because I'm part of a health department, we're not allowed to use. So I'm allowed to dial into Zoom, like here today, but I'm not allowed to initiate, and we're not allowed to use Zoom. So that's become a barrier for working with a lot of our youth and families, because the only platform that we're allowed to use is WebEx. And when we took our parenting engagement program virtual, that was a big learning curve with the parents to try to help them learn how to use WebEx. It's very Zoom-like, but it's clunky, especially in terms of its buffering. Because when you're trying to show videos, or when you're trying to, you know, share a screen, it has skips, much more so than Zoom. Has a lot of similar features, but what we have found is that trying to figure out platforms to engage with families and youth, they're using their phones.
Yeah.
So a lot of us are thinking, oh, well, you know, they're using a Chromebook, or which is, you know, how we're, you know, hoping to continue to engage with our youth. But parents are not. They're using a phone. So trying to put different platforms and just keeping that in mind. Funny story, I did have to remind parents that no, they could not participate in WebEx while driving. That was interesting.
Important message too.
like learning curves. And it was also interesting, something else that we weren't anticipating and that just didn't even cross our minds when you're working with families in a digital setting, you know, and we're an alcohol and drug prevention program. I had to remind families, I had a lot of smokers. And because they're at home and because they're in their own setting, they're wanting to smoke. And to remind them that they can't do that. So, which is kind of an interesting thing that happened just across the board, and that's whatever platform you use. So, yeah, we've been using WebEx.
WebEx is tough. You're right. Zoom has some flaws, but it is really, really handy when it comes to connecting with families. Okay, let's get back to it. We're nearing the end of our time together, and I did want to talk about one other thing. Oops. And that is keeping learning interesting and motivating, because that is a huge, huge challenge. And everybody is already feeling so overwhelmed by what's going on right now. But just like anything else in life, if we keep it interesting and motivating, we're more likely to keep doing it. So the more we can help families understand that, the more likely they're going to have fewer struggles with their kids and things will go much better. So some of the ideas I had for you are things like theme days, where you can have things like a joke of the day, a theme of the day, like we're going to wear crazy socks today, or we're going to focus on math today. It's our theme, but we're going to do it in a lot of different places and in different ways, indoors, outdoors, however they want to do it. Of the day assignments are things like, what's our spelling word of the day, and how can we use that in different sentences as we go throughout the day? We know things like that work well in the classroom because we do them all the time. So we need to share that with families so they understand how to do it in the home.